Let's play for a moment. Imagine walking into a room where no one knows you, no one knows your name, your story, your achievements, or your failures. And yet, as soon as you step inside, something changes. Conversations lower in tone, eyes shift toward you, the atmosphere tenses up as if your mere presence alters the environment. No one has said anything, neither you nor them, but something about you has already been decided. It's not a feeling, it's a silent sentence, a brutal judgment executed in less than 7 seconds. You haven't even opened your mouth and you've either been placed on a pedestal or buried in oblivion. Do you feel it? That pressure settling between your shoulder blades, that uncomfortable certainty that everything you are, everything you represent, is being filtered through eyes that don't know you but already think they know who you are. What if I told you that you could manipulate that judgment? What if I confessed to you that most of the people who've underestimated you in life did so because of an unconscious signal you gave them without intending to, the way you entered, the space you took up, the silence you kept or didn't? Do you know what's really scary? You do it too. Constantly. You scan strangers, you classify them, you file them away. Have you ever wondered how many opportunities you've missed by issuing that premature judgment? And how many others have missed opportunities by judging you without hearing you? And yet, there you are repeating the same pattern every day. Walking into rooms without realizing that you're already playing a game with no rules where every nonverbal move could be a dagger or a key. Now imagine you could write the script for that first impression, that every step, every gesture, every look had a purpose. That you no longer relied on chance, a good day, or it just happened naturally. Imagine walking into any room knowing exactly how you'd be perceived as the one who dominates the conversation before speaking, as the one who commands respect without raising their voice, as the one no one dares to underestimate. Because I'm going to tell you something no one wants to hear, the world doesn't wait for you to explain who you are. The world measures you in seconds, and if you don't control those seconds, they control you. The most unsettling thing of all is that this isn't new. This subtle manipulation, this automatic reading, this kind of psychic reading of who someone is has been happening for centuries. It's an ancient dance between perception and presence. And there are those who unknowingly dance it clumsily, stumbling over their own insecurities. And there are others who direct it in silence, without asking permission, without the need to speak. Do you want to know how it's done? Do you want to stop being seen as prey and become the silent predator of interaction? You don't need to shout. You don't need titles. You don't even need charisma. What you need is to understand how the invisible machinery of human perception works. And the most disturbing part is that it's within your reach. This isn't a motivational video. I'm not here to inflate your ego, I'm here to give you the tools that very few know and that almost no one wants you to discover. Because when you learn how to control how others see you, you no longer play on the board, you're the one who moves it. But before that, I'm going to ask you one last question. Think about the people who have had the most impact on your life. Do you really remember what they said? Or do you remember how they made you feel in those first few seconds? Exactly. The mind forgets words, but it records energy, posture, silence, intention. That's the real weapon. And you've always had it, you just didn't know how to use it. Until now. Get ready, because after this, you'll never walk into a room the same way again. Do you know what's most unsettling about all of this? That it doesn't matter how much you talk about yourself, how hard you try to explain your intentions or your values, if your energy doesn't convey them from the first second, everything you say afterwards sounds like justification. The world isn't listening to your words. It's reading your essence. And it does so before you can decide how you'd like to be understood. That's the trap. That's why those who master other people's perception aren't the most eloquent. They are the ones who know how to shape their energy so it speaks for them. And here comes one of the most ignored but most powerful tools, anticipation. The way you think before entering a social situation determines how you will be perceived. Yes, you heard right. The first contact doesn't begin when you cross the door, it starts in your mind, at that moment before you decide who you're going to be. It's not acting, it's intention. How many times have you walked into a meeting thinking, I hope I make a good impression? You already lost. Do you know why? Because your energy is of submission. The expectation of being accepted is noticeable, it's sensed. It shrinks you. Your body language adapts to that desire, and you project it without realizing it. Now imagine that before that same meeting, you repeat to yourself, I will observe. I will occupy my space. I will enter with the certainty that I already belong. Do you feel the difference? What you're doing there is anchoring yourself. It's psychological training. You're placing yourself in the right frequency before the first exchange of glances. And that frequency is what others will pick up on, because people don't perceive what you say, they perceive from where you say it. To slow down your movements. I'm not talking about trying to seem interesting or about empty posturing, I'm talking about controlling the rhythm. Most people who feel uncomfortable in a new environment speed up. They walk fast, they talk fast, they move nervously. What does that provoke? It causes others to automatically perceive insecurity. And if others perceive that you're uncomfortable with yourself, why would they feel comfortable with you? Exactly. No one trusts those who can't control themselves. Mastering the rhythm is mastering the narrative. When you walk slower, when you look without fear, when you make strategic pauses in your speech, you're projecting something extremely powerful: control. And control, in this invisible game of impressions, is synonymous with respect. But now let's talk about something even more underestimated: the use of the environment. Most people walk into a new place without understanding that every space has its own invisible rules. And those rules aren't dictated by the loudest one, but by the one who positions themselves best. Do you know what those who control the interaction from the beginning do? They choose where to be. They position themselves strategically. They don't hide. They don't stick to the wall. They don't look for corners to go unnoticed. They place themselves where they can be seen without appearing to seek attention. They find the exact point between presence and naturalness, because they understand that being seen is not the same as drawing attention. You don't need to speak loudly or tell jokes to be perceived as a leader. Sometimes it's enough to choose your place well, a visible spot with a good visual angle of the environment without physical barriers separating you from the others. That, whether you believe it or not, alters how others unconsciously organize the group's hierarchy map. But let's go deeper. There's an even more powerful dimension than posture, gaze, or silence, and it's emotional vibration. Sounds abstract, but it's not. We've all been near someone who, without saying a word, generates calm or tension. And we know it because we feel it. Where does that come from? From emotional management. You can't project confidence if you're fighting with yourself inside. That's why there's a practice no one teaches you, but which completely changes the way you enter any interaction: emotional grounding. No, it's not cheap spirituality, it's pure neuroscience. If before any social encounter you take an internal pause, not to think about what you're going to say, but to align your breath, feel your body, mentally affirm your purpose, you are programming your nervous system to emit signals of security. And those signals can't be faked. Authentic calm can't be imitated. It's felt. It's imposed. And when you project it, something incredible happens. People lower their guard. They open up. Because seeing you so firm inside, they feel protected. And when people feel protected around you, they begin to see you as a reference, as someone who leads without asking for it, without wanting it, just by being there. Solid. Unshakable. But I'm going to tell you one of the most Machiavellian things you can do. And here comes the true elegant manipulation. Observe this. Most people feel insecure in social interactions because they're waiting for a reaction from the other person, a smile, a gesture of approval, something that confirms they're doing things right. Now imagine you eliminate that expectation. And instead of waiting for validation, you begin to give it. You decide when to smile, who to look at, who to nod at. You set the rhythm. At that moment, you completely change the dynamic. You've gone from being the one who seeks to fit in to the one who decides who fits in with you. And this, be careful, isn't arrogance. It's intention. It's awareness of power. It's stepping out of the passive role we've been taught since childhood, the one where we ask for permission to exist, and moving into creating presence without apologizing for it. Look, I'm telling you straight, no one is going to save your self-esteem. No one will lift your spirits every time you doubt yourself. No one will train you to be perceived as someone of value. That's your job. And it starts here, understanding that in the first seconds of any interaction, your essence isn't being evaluated. Your vibration is being read. And you define that vibration. It's not enough to read self-esteem books or repeat affirmations in the mirror. What truly transforms your presence is the accumulation of internal decisions you make before the world looks at you. How you breathe. How you position yourself. What you allow to cross your mind just before facing others' judgments. That's your real preparation. Do you want to know why those with real presence seem to have an aura? Because they're not competing. They don't need to convince. They're not seeking approval. They're at peace with themselves. And that is magnetic. Because in a world of social anxiety, the one who projects calm seems like a god. Keep reading this because what's coming next will hurt, but it will also liberate you. Do you want to know the true abyss that separates those who master others' perception from those who are constantly ignored or underestimated? It's not aesthetics. It's not expensive clothes. It's not even charisma. It's the relationship they have with rejection. Yes, rejection. That social ghost that paralyzes most before they even try to project themselves with strength. Because here comes an uncomfortable yet necessary truth. If you fear being rejected, you project that you should be rejected. Rejection isn't an external threat, it's a reaction to your internal insecurity. People who fear not being liked often adopt defensive postures, subtle but clear. They don't look directly. They don't affirm their ideas. They avoid occupying space. And here's the curious part that generates rejection. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but because in nonverbal language, insecurity is translated as danger. Yes, you heard it. The primitive human brain interprets doubt as weakness and weakness as a possible burden. And what does it do with a potential burden? It distances itself. It avoids you. It discards you. Now, when you face that idea, when you face the fear of not being liked, of being judged, of not measuring up, and consciously decide not to beg anyone for anything, something in your energy changes. They notice it instantly. You're no longer waiting for permission to exist. You're saying with your very presence, I'm here. You can accept it or not, but I won't change for you. And that, my friend, that is pure power. Now let me take you a little deeper to an even darker but fascinating area, the use of strategic vulnerability. No, I don't mean exposing yourself as a martyr or unloading your traumas seeking empathy. I mean showing cracks consciously, controlled, and with a purpose. Because if everything you project is strength, you might seem unreachable. But when, at the right moment, you reveal a weakness without losing control, the perception created is devastating. This person is so confident that they're not afraid to show their human side. Do you see it? Vulnerability doesn't make you weak if you know when and how to use it. On the contrary, it adds depth. It adds nuances. It humanizes your presence. But it only works if it doesn't come from need, but from choice. And that's the difference between being perceived as a victim or as a leader with scars. Now I want to talk about something that's so present that almost no one sees it, the hidden intention behind every interaction. Because it's not enough to control your body, your voice, your energy. There's a deeper layer, the why behind what you're doing. The invisible purpose that drives your gestures, your words, your attitude. People don't read your mind, but they perceive if you're acting out of anxiety, fear, competition, or from a pure, clear, and compelling intention. And here comes a brutal concept, vibrational coherence. What you think, what you feel, and what you do must align. If you project firmness but doubt inside, it's noticeable. They may not be able to put it into words, but something doesn't fit. And that incoherence generates rejection even if you don't know why. But when you enter a space with your thoughts, emotions, and actions perfectly aligned, the effect is magnetic. You can't fake coherence, either you have it or you don't. And that kind of presence isn't built on rehearsed phrases or surface-level charm. It's built through internal discipline, mental alignment, and emotional consistency. It's not about what you say, it's about what you radiate. But let's go even further. Let's talk about something almost no one teaches you, the use of tension as a strategy. Yes, you read that right, tension. Most people run from it. They avoid discomfort. They rush to smooth things over, to make others feel at ease even at the cost of their own power. But you learn to generate tension, sustain it, and master it. Because tension creates attention, and whoever controls attention controls the interaction. That might sound Machiavellian, and in a way it is. But it works. For example, don't answer every question immediately. Let the silence breathe. Don't laugh just because others do. Don't rush to fill the awkward pauses in a conversation. Most people are terrified of silence. They interpret it as failure. You use it as a tool. Because when you hold silence with calm confidence, all eyes turn to you. People start wondering, what is he thinking? And right there, you've shifted the power. Not through noise, not through effort, but by controlling the pause. And since we're already talking about elegant manipulation, let's introduce another forgotten yet powerful concept, the narrative aura. What story does your presence tell without you saying a word? Because whether you realize it or not, everyone is projecting a narrative. Maybe it's I'm successful, I'm approachable, I'm dangerous, or even I'm irrelevant. The catch is we often radiate that story unconsciously through our posture, our eye contact, our micro-reactions, our energy. Now imagine this, you build your narrative on purpose. You shape a story so consistent with your presence that you never have to explain yourself because everything you do already says what needs to be said. That's real influence. That's leadership without speaking. But it requires work, brutal self-analysis, discomfort, silence, detachment from the addiction to approval. Because the less you need others to see you a certain way, the more control you gain over what they see. Paradoxical, right? But it's true. External perception is born from internal conviction. So here's a secret no one tells you. You don't need to be liked. You need to be clear. You need to leave an impression, not just a presence, but an echo. And that impression should never be built on chance or mood or how your day went. It must be crafted with intention. It doesn't matter if you're kind, distant, provocative, elegant, mysterious, or even intimidating. What matters is that you are consciously that way, that you choose which version of yourself walks into the room. Ng to be agreeable. That you sharpen that version like a blade. Because in a world where everyone is trying to be liked, trying to be agreeable, trying to fit in, you must become unforgettable. And unforgettable isn't born from begging for sympathy. It's forged by building a presence so centered, so unshakable, so defined that even those who want to ignore you simply can't. Not because you're loud, but because you're real. Not because you demand attention, but because your very existence pulls it. This isn't arrogance. It's strategy. Because remember, in the first few seconds, they've already made a decision about you. The only question is who's really making that decision? Them or you?